All right, we are back with Keeping It Local here. This is episode 15, I believe, and very happy to have on Mr. Phil Vetrano of Planning and Vision College and Career Path Coaching. How you doing, Phil?
Wonderful. Thank you very much for inviting me, John.
I can't wait. This is going to be an awesome conversation. So many topics that we need to cover, and I think just what you do is so important nowadays. And happy to have you on and discuss the way that you could help kids and college students and high school students prepare for what's to come. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you again.
Yeah. All right. So let's kick it right in. Tell us a little bit about Planning and Vision, what it is, how it started, and what you do.
Sure. So back in 2014, I was in a guidance counselor meeting with other parents and students. And at the time, I was in the world of IT, providing intel to executives and business managers, department managers at a credit union. And I find myself in this meeting, and the the guidance counselor said, it's never too early to start planning for college. So I'm an analyst, I'm a project manager, and I love working on initiatives and projects. And now I could team up with my son and help him identify the colleges that he would academically thrive at and socially thrive at. And so I spent 2.5 years, on the side doing all this analysis with him and helping him identify which colleges would be a great fit for him. We visited 17 colleges. So this is how I got into the business, because I identified as a manager, as a leader. One of the things, and as a project manager, I identify what are the skills you need to accomplish a goal. And so I had those skills to accomplish the goal. And I know that the curriculum that my son is in has nothing to do with those skills that I use on a daily basis to accomplish objectives and goals and provide insights to folks. So I identified there was 25 skills. I said, wow, students are at a huge disadvantage. Parents are at a huge disadvantage. They need time, they need the know-how, they need the patience, they need the understanding. And I said, okay, let me address this gap so that students aren't going in on their own and trying to figure this out, because the stats are really staggering. And it's when I hear about all the young adults and even people in their 40s that still have student debt because they bought into going into go to the best college, and or if it's expensive or not, you got to go because it's the best college that you got into. And so this was not a great message for folks who have these financial burdens. And I could tell you stories about that. But so I really care about people, and I'd like for them to be as successful as possible, like for them to make great decisions. And so in order to make great decisions, you need skills, you need time, you need effort, and you need the questions to ask. And that's a lot, that's one of the gaps that students have is, what are the right questions to ask? They're not taught in school how to identify what the great questions are when you're on a new project. And this project that they're working on, they're not getting the necessary preparation that they need, because I told you there was 25 skills. Those are not classes. There's no, for example, I'll tell you the one, decision making, right? We all take this for granted, but oh my goodness, it is one of the most important decisions that they're going to make at 17. And for them not to be prepared and know how to do this is not their fault. We have to set them up to share that knowledge and experience, and or get them surrounded with people who have that knowledge and experience. So this is how I got into it, and I'm very passionate about addressing their gaps. I don't think our youth has ever been a priority in our country, and I don't see it coming either. And so, it's got to be an organic kind of mechanism. Like I started this nonprofit organization to make things happen and to open up the eyes to parents and families to help them with this this raising of a child to really set them up for success.
Well, like you said, there's a lot to unpack there. Number one, number two, and I see what you're doing, because I am in this world, and it's so it's so competitive, number one, and I almost feel in some ways it's a burden. The college search, the whole aspect of it, it's a very, very heavy weight for people. um there's so much pressure to go to college, number one. There's so much pressure to do that, and these kids feel it. I mean, I see it every day, kids feeling this pressure of what they're going to do, where they're going to go. And like you said, in school, schools do as much as they can, but there's so many limitations too. There's limitations to the time that they could spend on this. There's limitations on how much they can divert from the curriculum and go into these skills. Like you said, the first skill you mentioned, which is my favorite, is decision making. Um, when you think about the age that we get to when we finally become good decision makers, and unfortunately for some people, it never comes. Um, but those are done through personal trials and tribulations, and hopefully learning from mistakes. And that's really the way we learn about decision making. But we don't necessarily spend a lot of time developing that skill to how to evaluate and make good decisions, especially on a personal basis. Because I know in school we make evaluations and decisions based on evidence, but rarely does that have to do with you and your life and what you're planning and your future goals. So yeah, I mean, that's a super important skill. And that leads me to my first real question here. Um you, as you said, you're very analytical, you are very data driven. You had the most I said this before we started, but you had the most thorough responses to my pre-questions that I sent out, like fully written out. I'm like, okay, yeah, Phil, I knew you were a prepper, but now I really see it. So what was your process? Because I'm big on process. What was your process for figuring out and analyzing and coming up with these 25 skills?
So, great question. So the first, it's it starts with goals. So in the world of business, it starts with goals. It starts with what it is that you want to accomplish. So everything in my mindset, it starts there. And so if the student isn't sure what their goals are, they need that support. So right now, high school is not designed for individual, attention to an individual goals.
Mm-hmm.
The purpose of high school is to get a high school diploma. It is not to set up each individual student for their college and career success and or their career success. That's not the goal. So we have to address those gaps, because you can't assume that's what's going to happen. Your daughter or son is going to figure all this out in high school. So it's an assumption that parents are making, that they're being educated to be prepared for this career-related decision. And it's unfair to have this as a thought process. So once you've escaped that as an assumption and say, oh, I didn't take Parent 101. I didn't take Parent 102. I may not be able to understand how to be a great parent when my kid is in high school, because I'm going through the motions and I've got my own agenda. I've got my career. I got the family to support. I'm focused on work. I'm not focused on preparing my son or daughter for that big decision in 12th grade. And so some parents are in there. They're helicopter parents. They're in there. They know the overwhelming process of college, and they'll push. They'll push careers. They'll provide their opinions, and it can force their will on the child, because they can. And there's nothing to say whether that's good or bad to them. It's something that they just want them to be in a field that they're going to be successful. And that's a goal that parents have, but they may want to revisit that goal, because that may not be best for your child. And so that's another conversation. But so the process back to your real question, the process of identifying the 25, it starts with goals. And once you know those goals, once you know the purpose of what they want to do, and if you don't know what they want to do, first goal, to figure this out. And what skills do you need to figure out what their passions are? You need to have knowledge. You need to understand how to figure that out. And so if you haven't had a methodology that is presented to you to how to figure this out, and you take a career test. I just read this student who just I just read this post. She went through a career test at her college, and she was so excited to do this test because she didn't figure out what she wanted to do. And at the end of that test, it said she should be a locksmith.
Interesting.
Yeah, so her heart sank because that had nothing to do with her interest, and it's something that she kiboshed quickly. But that didn't figure it out for her. A career test is not successful, not even 75% of the time. It's something that you could consider as a data point, and whether or not but you've got to figure out if this is it. Like, it doesn't stop there. You got to dig into it and see, what that represents and what that works. And oh my goodness, like it was completely off her base. Anyway, so what are the skills necessary to figure this out? First, it's the strategies associated with presenting information to your son or daughter. And it's either you or an expert who is going to identify what are the skills, what are their strengths, what are their talents, what are they interested in learning? And if they're not presented a list, they have no idea what their options are. And so I'm an analytical person who knows that if you don't present people options and you just ask them what their goals are, you get shallow answers. I've gotten too many students that say, I just want to go to college. And I say to them, oh, the first day you're there, congratulations, you've completed your goal. You went to college. But is that really the goal? No, that's not really the goal. You got to get into it. You got to fully understand it and understand the purpose.
And it takes a lot. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it takes a lot of drilling down especially with adolescents, right? With teenagers. A teenage brain is all over the place. There's so many things going on. So I think what you're saying, what I'm hearing, and I tend to agree with, is that you're never going to get that straight answer, not because a kid is avoidant or whatever, but there's so much more thought that goes into that. Well, it was Covey, right? Seven habits of think with the end in mind, right? That's part of that process, is like but it's very hard for the teenage mind to be able to think that far ahead. So what I'm hearing is that you help to drill down deeper and really figure out, okay, like, we're not just going to take the base answer or the career test. We're really going to drill down and figure out, all right, where do you actually want to go? Because like, college is a destination, but it's not a plan, right?
Absolutely. And so it is absolutely in the details, and it's how you get there. That's the journey. And I treat them like the CEO of their career, and they are making the decisions. I'm not persuading them one way or another. I'm providing objective information, but I want them to have options. And this is, as an analyst, you're always presenting managers, executives, and or yourself, what are my options to accomplish my goal? What are my options to accomplish my objectives? And then you want them to have a mindset of a student for life, and that they should be eager to learn. And the schools that they go to or they've been to, they may have liked some teachers, they may have not liked others. They may have liked some of the topics they were in, some of the topics they don't. Well, this is an independent activity where they're given personal attention, and they're making their own decisions, and they're going to learn whatever it is that they're interested in. We're going to go through that process, and they're going to see whether or not it's for them or not. And then the other extra step that I do is, there's no history of careers in schooling.
That's interesting.
And so all these kids who are making decisions, if they haven't spoken to multiple professionals who are in the career they're interested in, I'm telling you, they have not made an informed decision. And a question to the parents and to high school guidance counselors, you are sending them on their way without speaking to a professional in that career, you're doing a disservice to that student because they have no idea what they're signing up to.
Mm.
Maybe they've read a lot, but they haven't spoken to somebody. They say they want to do this. So what's the challenge? The challenge is, does the student know that it would be a good idea to speak to multiple professionals who've gone down the journey already so they can learn the history of that career, as well as being introduced to others? But if you haven't shown a student how to do this, you telling a student, go talk to an accountant, go talk to a doctor, go talk to a nurse, they're like deer in headlights. What do you mean?
Yeah.
How am I going to do that? And then I speak to parents, and no lawyers are going to talk to my kids. I was, wow, build that obstacle already. Don't even make the attempt. You're just
Yeah.
assuming that no lawyer is going to talk to your kid. And
Which,
so, go
speaking from
ahead.
experience, it's so untrue because we had a professional day in my school this year where we had like 30 professionals come in and kids rotated and they met with them and it was great. But I mean, the folks that came were so eager to do this, and I totally understand that not every professional is in the position to be able to do that and to step out of their job for a day and do it because it's asking a lot. But at the same time, I mean, we had so many volunteers. People love expressing their thoughts and knowledge to others. I mean, that's just who we are, right? And then to be given that opportunity to speak to kids that are showing an interest in what you're doing is, I mean, I see people jump at that opportunity. So to have that automatic hurdle is just, it's such a certain mind. It's the opposite of a growth mindset, right? That is the fixed mindset where it's like, no one wants to talk to my kid about this. You know, a lawyer is not going to come down because maybe we view that career as so high and mighty. But these folks, like the great ones, they love doing that. That's the thing that they're passionate about the most. And I want to ask another question because I have a feeling you have a data point on this, but what you're saying, what rang in my head about, you know, speaking to somebody and getting to know that career and the history of a career. If you don't have the data point, that's fine. But I would love to know the data of how many kids follow their parents into their career path, the parents' career path, because that is what they've heard about the majority of their life. And that's what they've experienced personally. And I think what you're saying is if you could offer that to several careers, you know, 15, 20, or however many careers they're interested in, you're going to get a much more interested, engaged kid because now they've had that experience that they've had with their parents their whole lives about their career. And now they could have it with multiple other people on a much deeper level. So I weaved a lot into there, but I don't know if you have that data point or not, but I'm sure it's pretty, I'm sure it's pretty high for kids that follow in their parents' career path.
Yeah, it's a huge influence. And certainly if the parents are promoting it, they take their kids to work. So I have a dentist, and her dad's a dentist. And through she saw all the ins and outs of being a dentist, and she knew she wanted to be a dentist because she saw it with her own eyes. She saw the good, the bad, and the ugly of being a dentist. And and here's a news flash. She hated dental school. So she knew exactly what she was signing up to as a career. She had no idea what she was signing up to from a dental school perspective and what that was going to be like because she was more interested in the career than the schooling. So she was blindsided by what she was going to take and all those courses and what she needed to do and the professors who were there. So she did not have a great dental school experience. She couldn't wait to get out because she knew she wanted it. And that's the appetite that you desire for your students in high school, that they have ambition and interest in something that they visually see and they're exposed to. It's, of course, the question is, you know, they're going to the dentist probably every 6 months. So they're exposed to that particular career. They can observe and get that sense. But what about the other 15,000 careers that they're not
Right.
seeing?
Right.
And so this is the blind spot for kids. And yes, that's overwhelming to even consider. But one of the things is, there's about 131 career skills that students could develop a plan for, and parents could develop a plan for, to identify which ones do you want to be, which ones do you want to learn, which ones do you think you're going to be good at, and or which ones are you good at now that you want to, embellish. And that helps. If we're able to identify the career skills that they're interested in, then we can identify the career. So it gets from 15,000 to a much shorter list when you identify the skills that they're eager to learn. And this is another blind spot for parents and families and students, is what does that list look like? I didn't know there was an inventory. Wow, if I knew there was an inventory, I walked down that list, that could help me identify what I'm more interested in. Because now I'm talking about the specific skills of a job, not just the overall career. And now you've got to figure out, what are the skills I need to learn that career? And is this something that's in line with me? I had a student who was interested in astronomy. He had no idea until I showed him the degree requirements that physics was on there. So astronomy did not associate with physics in his mind.
Yep.
And so a blind spot for the student, I opened up his eyes, and all of a sudden, like this, I don't want to be in astronomy. I don't want to be an astronomy student. I don't want to be an astronomer. I am done with that. Let's go to the next career.
Yeah. What's next? Show me what's next. But and it's a tough spot because this is something we were speaking about this another time, but in my class, we spend like the fourth quarter on transition. And one of the things that we do, like the first thing we do, is a skills analysis where we have those CDOS skills, but those are very broad. They're not drilled down. They're like the most basic career skills in a more holistic way. And the first thing we do is drill down. All right, what skills do you have? What skills do you need to work on? How are you going to acquire them? And that's like the first step that we take. But again, what you're doing is now you've identified 137. You've identified specific skills for each career path that they might be interested in. So what you could do is like, we just don't have the time. Like if I had the time, I would love to do that all day but we just don't have the time. And my guidance counselor is so great. She helps with these things. She facilitates this stuff. We do, the career inventories and everything, but everybody's so limited on what they could do in the time of day, because then there's curriculum and all these other things. And it's like, now you are offering that side piece of time where it's like, hey, there's only so much that can be addressed because of time limitations in a school. I can address them further in a much more singular way too, on a person to person basis.
Yeah. So one of the opportunities for schools, because they can't get to that personal level and drill down, they absolutely do not have the time. That's not the model of schools.
Yeah.
They cannot possibly manage it with the limited staff and resources that you guys have.
Yeah.
And I can't do that either. I can't, even if I can't service 400 students at the same time,
right.
and or in one semester. It's unrealistic. And that's why it's really important that we're educating parents that you really should be surrounding yourself with a great support system of adults who care about your kid. And so this could be a news flash for them, that they don't know about creating a support system for their loved one, because their parents unlikely build a support system. They had to figure everything out. In society, that's what we say. You figure it out what you want to do. You could do anything. That's so, it's like, thank you very much. I can do anything, but I don't know what to do. And now I'm in this anxiety attack.
I could do
because I could do anything.
How do I get doing? Like, that's the question.
And so I've seen so many surveys about the anxiety that kids are going through with the pressure of college, just peer pressure. And I'm just so sorry for them that, at any moment of time, that one of their peers could just publish anything harsh publicly. I mean, it's just an insane thought. before cell phones. Like that was unheard of to go public with some big news across an entire nation
Yeah.
about, and it's the saddest thing. And no, who wants to be in that position? Of
Yeah.
course, adults have built their minds, and so they're comfortable and confident that
Hmm.
they could care less if you're posting something, horrible about me, and or we have lawsuits that could take care of that.
Right.
But we're not dreading that every day.
Yeah.
And now you're in an environment where this pressure is just crazy. And of course the suicidal rates and thoughts are going up because this is not a good environment to be in, where you are on pins and needles to participate in class, because what your neighbor is going to think of you, and or your classmate is going to think of you. And it's just sad that we're in this state, and we got to lean on parents to
Yeah.
teach them kindness and respect and these wonderful virtues that are really important to instill in their kids, because we're in an environment where it's brutal. It's
Yeah.
it's
I mean,
it's
the
really.
mistake that you could make or embarrass the way if you back then when we were kids, if we embarrassed ourselves, it was probably over in a day or so, no
Yep.
matter what you did. Now
Yep.
that embarrassing moment can live in perpetuity, and that's a lot to deal with. Um, and I think also another thing, when you're talking about pressure, I think about it more. I've always thought about it in the realm of teaching, especially where I am now. I see the pressure that parents feel to be able to get their, and there's a competitive nature. You have especially in a smaller school where everybody knows everybody, and even within the close knit group of friends, there's an enormous amount of pressure for the parents to have their kids performing at a level that other kids are performing, and are they going to be able to get them into the school? But like you said, no one thinks about networking to support that struggle. No one thinks about that. And it's so what we said this the other night when we spoke, your network is your net worth, right? Like the old phrase, networking to support your son or daughter getting into a college, getting into a career. I mean, what a great opportunity. It's so simple.
Absolutely. But this is generally, people don't like to go out of their comfort zone. So if they've never introduced another adult to their kid, and now they're starting, and it's blindsiding the kid, and the will not listen to their parents after a certain age, they're just pushing back. No, no, dad, no, mom. I don't want to meet anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you're in a challenge where you're hearing this, and how important it is for kids to communicate with adults is really important, because they're not going to interview with their friends. It's not going
Yep.
to happen.
Yep.
So if you want to prepare your kids for life, you want them to be and talk to as many professionals as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not going to do it, I will do it for you. If you're not going to do it, maybe your spouse will do it for you. Maybe if you're not going to do it, maybe an uncle will do it for you. But we've got to get them in front of a variety of adults to to even have somebody to go to, because planning their future is nothing they've ever done before. They're in the motions of being required to go to school at the school that you told them to go to.
Yep.
They've never made a big decision to do something other than that.
Yeah. They're
And
in the
now,
motions of getting it done. Like that's the motion, is like, get it done, get it done, get it done.
yeah. And so there's a huge opportunity to prepare your kids to get a support system, to start having the conversation and you could use yourself as an example. We all stopped talking to our parents at one point, and there was at one point we stopped listening to our parents. If you share that with your kids, they will be able to relate to you really
Yeah.
quickly.
Yep. Yep. It's so true.
And so, and you could say, my parents didn't provide any sort of guidance and support system for other adults. It was just in the family, and everybody was gonna, assume that everybody's gonna be okay, and or you'll get over it. Like that was the mental health strategy. Oh,
Right.
you'll get over it.
Yeah, you'll get, yeah, just deal with it.
Just deal with it.
Yeah.
Just
No, it's
cope.
true. It's
I'm not
so
going to give
true
you any
though.
tools or skills to do that, but just, you'll figure it out.
Yeah, well, it's that old school way of thinking of it's just like I tell you what to do and that's it and you do it. And that applied to everything. It was like, no, I already told you, do that, you're doing that and that's it. It's done. And I think I would like to say that we've come further in the sense that we realize that that's not the way to do. We haven't necessarily fortified a plan on the right way to do it yet. But we're starting to realize that, like, yeah, you just can't say what to do or how to, you have to show how to do it. You have to build the skills in order to do it. It's so important. And that's something I do all day now is like, it's all skill work for me and my kids. It's just building the skills to do it because especially, we have so much technology now, right? We have AI coming in that's able to do so many things. And even with the kids, like I look at it as a tool. As soon as it came out, I was one of the people pushing and saying, we need to bring this in because this is teaching us how to ask questions directly and properly and make ourselves very, very clear. Because once you start messing around with ChatGTP, when you don't set that prompt up correctly, you get some haywire stuff going on. I just read a thing in Google the other day. Some of the responses that like Google's AI is giving in the Google search is like out of control. It's saying to put like glue in your cake mix to make it, but if you don't prompt it correctly, you're not going to get the optimal response back. And what an important skill for young kids to learn right now is how to properly and clearly ask questions and request prompts and request tasks. I mean, that's such a huge thing that kids are going to need to get better and better at. So to me, it's like there's all this adapting that's going to need to be done, but it's all based in skills. It's all based on just learning more and more skills and then being able to apply those skills into whatever you're doing and use whatever tools you have around you.
Excellent. So there's from my perspective, if you don't know what questions to ask, it's really difficult. And of
Yes.
course, if they have an assignment that is very specific, then they're going to be utilizing the terms that are based on the assignment itself, and then they're going to start asking the question. Describe what William Shakespeare was doing when it was, in a book, and then they're typing in the questions to find what answers there are.
Right.
So, but definitely, if done correctly, if those assignments or projects are open-ended, and then they're trying to work those questions out for themselves, and one of the opportunities is to share with the teacher, here's how I got there,
Mm-hmm.
and show the work. And that
Mm-hmm.
that is definitely an opportunity for teachers like you to engage and get excited that they're utilizing a tool to help them accomplish the goal, whatever that goal is or that assignment is,
Right.
to help them. Yeah, and because it's now available.
Yeah.
And so why are we holding back if this is something that they may be using as a career tool
Mm-hmm.
in their work?
Right. And at the same time though, and this I told I used to coach wrestling, middle school wrestling, for a while, and sitting there one day in practice, we were giving a little speech to the kids, and I see them, and this was pre-COVID, where attention, the focus on the lack of attention wasn't at the peak yet. And I'm looking at them and I see, they're looking, and I see one kid looking at his phones. I'm like, guys, I'm just going to tell you, I'm not mad, but I want you to understand something. By the time you graduate college, the most valuable commodity that will be available is your attention. And the attention that you could give to another person in whatever line of work you choose is going to be the most important thing that you could do. And that will be the biggest gauge of your success. Because if you could pay attention and be one-on-one with another individual, which we're going to need more than ever as we progress down all these roads, your attention and your ability to focus in on that person and actively listen and respond is going to be so valuable because so many people are going to lose that skill set. They're going to
Wow.
lose it. Oh,
Wow.
and they are losing. And now, I mean, hindsight, that wasn't hindsight. Now I look back and I'm like, geez, I didn't realize how right I was when I was saying that. Like, that's crazy. And now, because of COVID and everything else, that's been amplified to the point where it's like your personal touch, your ability to engage one on one with somebody is like, if you're in sales, forget about it. If you cannot engage and have a one-to-one conversation where you look them in the eye, hear what they're saying, understand it, respond back in an appropriate way, you're done. Like, the guy who could do that or the girl who could do that is going to make millions of dollars, as opposed to the person who can't. It's 100%. I see it happening. Um, that's why, I mean, we started, we talked about this. We saw a major need in interviewing skills. And I remember it myself, that the most scared, I was always great in front of the classroom. I never had a problem public speaking. Obviously, I started a little podcast, so clearly I have no problem putting myself out there. But the hardest thing that I ever did was my first mock interview with my college professors. And we only did one. And after we did it, I was like, oh my God, I need like 15 more of these. I was petrified. And my student teacher, seminar person was sitting there, and he's like, that is the most nervous I've ever seen John. I've observed him 4 times, blah, blah, blah. He's taught that, like, I've never seen him nervous. He's like, I've never seen him sweat like that. And that experience is so frightening. And then when you're sitting in an interview for your job where there's hundreds of applicants, you're questioning everything, every single thing you say before you walk out of that room. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to start EdPath, which I was like, we need to help teachers, because there are great teachers out there who just might not be interviewing well, or not knowing what the principals actually want to hear. And that intention they're unaware of. So they might think they're answering the question great, or they're answering it with a lack of confidence. And that might be enough when you have 500 applicants to be like, oh, I kind of like them, but the person after them was just more confident. I'm going with them. And that's one of the reasons why we started this project and this business, was we knew how to give the insights to candidates to answer questions with confidence and know what that conversation needs to sound like. Because you can't ask your principal if you're getting a new job. Like, if you're leaving the school and you're going to work somewhere else, well, now they got a position to fill. They're probably not going to be thrilled. You don't wind up telling them until after you've gotten the job. They have no idea you're interviewing. You can't go and ask, hey, can I, practice interviewing with you? It's just, no, you can't really do that. There's no opportunity. So that was the gap that we saw. And we were like, let's provide this where teachers can come and they can, or it doesn't have to be teachers. It could be college graduates. It could be students who plan on going into teaching. It could be substitutes, TAs. But if you want to know what you should say in an interview, what principals want to hear and why they're asking the questions, that's what we do, and that's what we provide for people. And it's been, the people who have done the service so far, they love it. It's one-to-one coaching, and they absolutely love it. It's been a game changer for them.
Absolutely. And so this is a great example of if a student is interested in the world of education, that part of the parents, if you're listening, John can be part of your support system for your child, and provide them the insights that they would not otherwise get. Because do you think your son or daughter is going to go after this information? Do they know to go after this information? Not a chance.
Yeah.
They are going to do it on their own because they don't know otherwise. So this is a great example of, here's what preparation looks like. You want to be in the know of what to expect, what the questions that they're going to ask you, and what responses that they are looking for. What else can you ask for? That's the edge you need.
Right.
And so this is what any profession is required to do, is to understand what skills they're looking for, what questions they're going to ask you, what experience do you have, and have you built upon that along the way that makes sense. And so what a great, now, so this really gets to the level of detail where people could fully understand and grasp the concept. And if they spoke to the schools they want to work at, there's another edge that they can have, is because they're doing the necessary homework and or the necessary research to really understand what it is they're signing up to.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who accept jobs who don't ask a lot of questions. And
Hmm.
then when they get there, they're like blindsided because of the culture that's there, and or the trial by error where they're not being trained at all and just thrown into the fire. And so this is something that, of course, they're getting paid, but are they happy? And then are they, is this the place where they want to be?
Right.
So yep, a lot of analysis that's required to make good decisions.
Yeah. And that it's funny you say that, because one of our clients who got hired after our coaching sessions, she had interviewed many, many times. She had gotten to the end, to the superintendents, and just had been overlooked a few times. She's a phenomenal teacher. And she did a demo lesson analysis with us where she showed us her demo. One of our coaches went through it. Coach is a assistant principal, and just kind of explained, like, all right, listen, just pointed out some things. If you trip up here, that you're going to do this, and just gave her the strategies, gave her the insight, and also analyzed the school to see, okay, like, look, here's the trends. Like, here's what this school's doing. Here's their mission statement. Here's their report card, which everybody has access to, but they know how to look at it. So they figured this out. She got to the superintendent, and one of the things that we always get asked and that we always coach our clients on, and here's a great tidbit. This is a free one. At the end of an interview, there's always the question from the interviewers: do you have any questions for us? Most people have no idea what to ask, or they ask, a very generic question, and as soon as they're done talking, they get the answer. Oh, okay, thank you. So we provided this person with 3 questions that they should ask this particular superintendent, because we did our research and we knew what they were about. And the interview went another 20 minutes after on those questions. It was supposed to end. It went 20 more minutes. And the next week is when she got the call that she got hired. So I'm not saying that EdPath is the answer. Yeah, ultimately, the person's got to go in there and perform. Always. That's the whole thing with coaching, right? You could be the greatest coach in the world, but your team, you have to execute. So what we're doing is providing people with more confidence to execute. The only downside to this whole thing, and I don't even want to say it's a downside, but I feel like we probably have a similar situation in both of our businesses here, where I don't think people realize yet that they need this interview coaching for teaching. It's very new. There's like, I only found like one other person that does this, and they're not at the level that we are, with the coaches that we have. And people don't realize they need it until they do it. And I feel like that's very similar with college and career planning, is like, it's out there, but like, you don't realize how much you need this until you're doing it and you're in it and you're getting the service. And it's like, oh my God, I wish I did this 10 years ago, or whatever it is. Do you experience that with your business now, with your clients?
Yeah, so it's certainly a challenge. I mean, just in general, Americans aren't good planners. I mean, you look at financial planning. I mean, 70% live paycheck to paycheck. It's probably because they didn't learn how to manage their money and how to budget and what cash flow is, and then there may not be savers. There's people who are making, $250,000 a year, but they're spending $300,000 a year. So that's not a successful model for anybody.
No.
So planning is not our specialty. When I say our specialty, United States. So they will procrastinate and or delay as much as possible. But the earlier you start, the better off you always are. You're always better if you start early.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is something that is really important. And so parents will delay, and or, this is my favorite, the parents hear all the great stuff that I do with students. And then they say, let me ask my son or daughter if she wants to do this.
No.
Oh, and because they know better, because they've lived this life and they can make great decisions based on just the data point of you telling them that you've got this guy that you met.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and
Yep.
and it proves that they're not inquisitive. They don't want the help. And here's a big thing. Parents generally don't want to get others involved in the family dynamics. This is a very sensitive, taboo type of thing
Mm-hmm.
where there's not the dynamic is not thriving.
There's a major
And
fear of judgment, I'm sure,
oh
like a
my
major
goodness.
fear. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yep.
And so there's that anxiety that the parents may be going through because there's an ego that they have
Mm-hmm.
about being a parent and
Mm-hmm.
whether or not someone else is going to support them and help them, which, in our generation, asking for help was a bad thing.
Right.
Oh my
Right.
goodness, was that a horrible thought on,
Yeah.
on most people? You ask a CEO, do you need help? Absolutely. They'll be telling you how much help they need.
Yeah.
They
Um,
always need help.
I'm sure that there are so many people who feel where it's like, and I totally understand it. I'm not making a judgment at all. I can feel it myself in my head right now as I'm thinking towards the future, but I can imagine so many people sitting there and thinking like, am I going to be judged that I can't do this for my kid? Like, am I not a good parent? Because that's, I think, the majority of parents fear, like, am I not a good parent because I can't do this for my kid? And that's, I think, a way a lot of people probably feel before they realize, like, maybe I'm better for doing this. Maybe I'm actually doing a much better thing because I'm saying, hey, like, I haven't done this research that you have. I haven't figured all this stuff out. Why not have the person who does come in and do that? And, like, you think about it with sports, like, we specialize in sports so much now. Like, I feel like every kid, like, there's hitting lessons for baseball, there's private lessons, there's all this stuff. And we do these things for sports, and it's great. I love sports. I was always an athlete. I think that's awesome. And if you want to do that, fantastic. But at the same time, most of these kids aren't going pro in any of the sports that they're playing. Why not give them the tools that are actually going to get them into that college? And probably, I mean, you also can help kids figure out scholarship opportunities too, right? Through planning and vision.
Absolutely. So every college that they're applying to can will either offer they either have scholarships to offer or they don't. And
Mm-hmm.
so we definitely I do know and understand which colleges do. Especially since COVID has happened, that has slightly increased, which is a good thing for parents and students. So definitely that's one of the goals that I have for the students. I want to save the money. I want to save the family money.
Yeah.
And so and just to tag back on that the ego thing and the parents thing, parents, the first thing you have to admit to yourself is that you're not an expert in everything. And then the question for you is, do you know what your son or daughter is getting into? You're asking them, you don't know this, but you're asking them to assess an organization. Well, what organization? A college. College is a business, it's an organization. If you were to ask people who work for a company to describe all the departments that there and what they do, you're going to get blank stares. But yet, you're going to ask a student to evaluate a college, which they've never done before in their lives. Let's give them that assignment. Let's see if they can figure that out themselves. Now, this is just brutal honesty and assessment to see what the obvious is. It's obvious to me students are ill prepared for this activity. Why? Because it's in-depth analysis. They're rolling the dice. They're going to make decisions that aren't really well informed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not their fault.
Yeah.
It's a huge assignment. It's a huge research project, and you're just going to let them do what it is that they can do and live with that. And you'll be okay with it. You may not be okay with it until they're there for 6 years because they still haven't nailed down their major, and or if they transferred 3 times because they weren't happy at the schools.
Mm-hmm.
30% of students will either drop out or transfer to another college. 30%.
So
The
crazy.
other stat is 50, like only 30% of students are happy where they are. And then the other 70% are not. They'd rather be someplace else. So they're not doing a great job by doing this for the first time ever. And so when I just have to keep drilling that into the parent thinking, because there's so many assumptions that are made about this process, and it's not easy. It's expensive too. Some of these colleges, they're reaching $90,000 now. This is a mortgage,
Yeah.
$360,000 for a 4-year degree. Oh, by the way, they want to go to college again because they don't want to work. They just want to keep going to classes. So this is something that I talk about in the first session that we have, is to understand goals.
Well,
and
it's
understand
funny because I can bring anything into real estate. But what you just described is the same as real estate, Phil, because how do kids pick a college, right? They look at it online, then they go see it, and they walk around and maybe spend a weekend there if they're doing a sport, and then they decide I had a good time or I didn't like it. I like the way it looks, okay, and I'm gonna
I'm
sign.
going there. My
Okay.
favorite school.
The only step in the road that makes real estate different is what do we do after we go see and we like it and we get an accepted offer? We get a home inspection. We get the in-depth analysis done after we go look at it. Then we have the home inspector come in and look at every single little thing that we have no idea about: furnaces, boilers, electric panels, roofs, siding, all that stuff. The home inspector comes in, gives you a detailed report, and then you decide, am I going to buy this house? Oh, wait, there's a crack in the foundation. The roof's leaking. The boiler's 45 years old. You got to fill it with water to make sure it doesn't flood. Oh, God, no, we're not buying this house. You do the inspection before they get to college. Like it's absolutely so simple. And also, people can't do this. They can't do it the way you do it. And you're spending almost an equivalent amount of money on this education as you are on that home. I always say real estate is the biggest investment you're going to make in your life. You want to make an informed decision. You want to make a smart investment. How can you make a smart investment if you don't do the analytical, data-driven analysis of what that school actually has to offer?
Outstanding. And I'm sure that all your clients are doing the full analysis of that school that they've signed up to because they heard it was a good school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. That's what drives it. It's like it's such what you're doing is so simple. It just makes so much sense. It's like let's do a deep dive into what this place offers. Well, and there's a certain amount that you can do on your own. Sure, you could look at the website, you could read into it, maybe you talk to someone who went there, but there's I'm sure a lot more that goes into that than just what you can find online.
Yeah. There's certainly the bias of the marketing, right?
Mm,
What's their goal? Marketing is goal is to attract as many students to their website as possible. So they're going to make it short and simple. I don't know. Oh my goodness. I'm going to tell you this. So the world of college used to be the heads of the departments would manage the content.
mm,
So when you have department heads who are professors and deans, you're going to get a much different view and thorough details of what you were getting compared to now, which is run by marketing. And now you're getting paper thin sentences about the program because the attention span of students and parents are about as size of the sentence that they've created.
mm. So what is the
So
ultimate thing that draws the kids to the college? Like what is the ultimate thing? If they're not using planning and vision, let's say, if you're just a run of the mill person, what is the ultimate factor that allows them to make the decision to go there besides, and let's eliminate scholarships like that they're getting a full ride. Let's just say it's equivalent across the board. What is the ultimate decision factor usually?
all right. So the students that I have or the students I don't have?
Students you don't have. Let's go there. If you know that answer.
Yeah, so it's all over the place.
Okay.
They will use their own logic, whether it's price, whether it's location, whether it's the town, it's the spirit, it's the ideas that they have, how popular it is, how impressed my parents are, how impressed that my friends are. It's these shallow kind of factors that
Nothing
will
is a
weigh
deep dive at
heavy.
what's good for them. Like there's no,
Oh my goodness,
yeah.
yeah. And
Okay.
so there are students that do some level of work and understanding and visit the school like 3 or 4 times.
Mm-hmm.
That helps
Yeah.
to know that they want to go there. And some are just tunnel vision. I'm going to this school. I want to go to this school. I know I could get into the school. I'm going to the school. And for parents, it's like, whew, I've just reduced my overwhelm and they've reduced their overwhelm. And now life is easy. But your son or daughter will never know what they are missing because they did no comparisons at all. And they just wanted to go to that school. You may feel great about that. But in my world, what skills did you develop in that process?
Mm.
really limited. It was an opportunity to gain a lot of skills to compare one to another. Not many students are comparing apples to apples in their school analysis. They're there's just everything like the location, the distance,
How it makes you feel.
the
Yep.
weather,
Yep.
all these are factors, but not necessarily are they the best fit factors because you're living there on campus for 8 months and you have no idea what you're signing up to until you are a student there, and now you could see, oh, I didn't ask these questions.
Right.
and
Right.
and oh my goodness, what did I get myself into?
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought, here's a big nugget. Do you know all these parents put a deposit and pay for the semester, and then they have no idea, and they enroll. They have no idea what classes the student's going to be in
Well, they can't
until like
disclose it, right? Like, is that?
no, you don't register after you put the deposit down. I mean,
Oh.
you don't. No, here's my point. You don't know what classes you're going to get until after you put the deposit down. So this means you're blindsided by not knowing anything about this school that you've just signed up to because you don't know what classes you're taking in the first semester.
Yeah.
And from a business perspective, that's absurd. You have no idea what you just signed up to
Mm-hmm.
because you could be limited in what classes your son or daughter is going to take. But maybe that's not important to you because that $45,000 for that first semester, they'll just take the classes they need to take. And so it's
Yeah.
like you just bought a car and you have no idea what color it is. You have
Yep.
no idea what the engine's like, but now you've signed up. And so this is like a crazy thing for me, as an analyst that all these people are paying for the classes. I mean, paying for college without really knowing. And some of them, you have no idea what dorm you're going to be in. Oh, that's another great sign up. Like two things. These are two factors. Now, some schools, I'll give you a hint. Some schools, when you put that deposit, you're signing up to which dorm you're getting. Now, that's a competitive advantage.
Mm-hmm.
If it's important for the student that they know what dorm they're going to be in before they're actually going there. So that's some of the tidbits of, but like real estate, it's like imagine and I guess some people do this. They're buying the house without even stepping a foot into it.
Less now, but that was definitely a COVID thing. Yeah. But it's still that, that's why you see buyer's remorse is a real thing in the last 4 years, more so than it has been. There's so many
Mm,
people out there with buyer's remorse because they had to overlook things, and it's a totally different situation. They were forced into it, where here you have the options to look at it. I mean, I feel like the only way you don't have an option is if you are for some reason financially burdened, there's struggles, and you have one school that you have the full ride to. That's where I could see it's like, all right, that's going to be the ultimate factor in my decision making, is like, I don't have to pay to go here. And I totally understand that, and that makes sense. But if you do have options, you got to weigh them. You got to look into them, and you got to figure out, all right, what's the best thing for me? Because that's the one thing that I think is lost in all of this, is like, ultimately, well, I shouldn't say it's lost. It's like it's a double-edged sword, because it's like, well, let's let little so and so go here because it's where they want to go, but at the same time, we're not looking and seeing, is that what's best for little so and so. I don't want to put a name or a gender to anybody at this point, but whoever it is, where do they want to go? That's great. They want to go there. It's their decision. But like, have we really thought about, is this the best decision to make? And like, we shouldn't just be settling on it because a decision was made. That's the biggest thing. It's like, oh, a decision was made. That's it. Done. We're good. Like you said, it's like, well, let's put a lot of work into this decision, because again, it's costly. It's a big deal. It's one of the biggest decisions you're ever going to make in your life. Like, you don't have a choice of what high school and school you go to, because your parents moved there and that's where you're going. Like, unless you're going to some prep school because you're a star athlete or whatever, you want to go to somewhere else. But ultimately, like, you don't really choose your high school. You go there and that's it. But like, you're choosing your college. It's for you. It's to develop who you are going to be for the remainder of your life. That is like the place where you go to figure out who are you going to turn into as a person in your career, in your life? And to just do that flippantly to me is, it's crazy. There's got to be a lot more that goes into it.
Yeah. So not every person thinks in those terms.
Yeah.
And so that's the valuable lesson that you're sharing with the audience to be in the know that there is a proper way of doing this, and
Hmm.
then there's everything else,
Yeah. Yeah. Now,
which
I
is
wanted
I
to
call
ask
rolling
you,
the dice.
yeah, right. Now, your clients, do you find that your clients are more like you? They're more analytical and they're more data driven? Or do you find more of they're the complete opposite and they need your help because they're not like that? Or, I don't know if you have the numbers on that either, but I'd be interested to know.
So most of my clients are not uh, heavily analytical, and I
Okay.
had this great couple. They just said to me, "We need your help. We don't know how to do this," and they were there. What's great is, so this is an opportunity. What's great is they were there every step of the way to see and understand the process and see the level of confidence that they were having and the daughter was having
Mm.
in this process. And then when things were that when she wasn't spending the time on the activities that she needed to do, mom and dad were there. And certainly that was that one of the challenges is that they were playing mom and dad while I was there, as opposed to tabling it and having the discussion afterwards. But they were like part of the team. And this was a benefit to them because then they could see that what we were doing, we were providing compelling reasons why she should go there or not go there.
Mm.
And then she was figuring this out as well for herself. And we were, providing her the really big nuggets of features that we were saying that was important for her. And then going through that analysis to say, here's the hard cold facts. And does this make sense for you? She was interested in forensics, and one of the schools had ex-FBI agents there.
Mm.
That is exciting and interesting. But if you don't dig deep, you don't know this.
Right.
And
Yep.
so, and this fascinated her, and she actually went to that school because it had the people who were on her level that were really smart and that they would go there, and she wanted to know the nitty-gritty details of lots of crimes that she could work on from
Mm.
an investigative perspective. So it really resonated with her.
Mm.
And that was one of the compelling reasons but we uncovered this because we asked a lot of questions to
Mm.
the right people. And that's
Right.
the other thing is who are the right people to ask these questions? And
Yeah.
so it's the people who work there, who go there, and are not biased with
Mm.
like emissions. If you just keep talking to emissions, they're going to tell you what you want to hear.
Right. Right.
Um, but if you talk to the people outside of emissions, they haven't been trained on marketing
Mm.
to they could give you the lowdown. And especially I respect the academics.
Yeah.
They'll be brutally honest and sometimes really tough.
Okay.
Really tough.
So you said something really interesting that I want to go back to, and I think this again for the parent, because that's where my brain is right now. I think what you tapped on with that client that's so important for a parent to hear is that this is not outsourcing of your parental responsibility.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of talk about that. I think there's a lot of feelings about that. I think there's a lot of backdoor discussions like between parents about somebody like, oh, like they just outsource their parenting like responsibilities to other people. Like this is not outsourcing in this case, especially. This is not like you're outsourcing your responsibility as a parent onto planning and vision. What you're doing is bringing them in to the family. Like you are bringing them into the fold and making them a part of the process. So you're admitting, like you said before, that you don't know everything about this, that you don't have the full skill set to properly prepare your kid for it. And that's okay because that's not your job. Like that's nobody's job. That's not a parent's job. But we feel like we never want to feel like we're outsourcing what we should be doing with our kid to somebody else. But in this case, you're making them a part of the process. And to me, that's huge because the parents being involved and being there every step of the way is like, hey, we brought someone on board to work with us. We didn't say, go work with them. Like, we don't know what we're doing. Just go work with them and let us know how it goes. That's, to me, that's a monster piece of this, and should not be overlooked.
Yeah, and it's definitely an option. And then just sometimes the student is not comfortable and in sharing their preferences and their goals and their
Totally.
interests. And the parents, I've never had a conversation with a parent to say that they didn't respect that. And
Hmm.
I mean, I think all of the parents I've spoken to, they know and understand that component, and they are comfortable with, let them decide whether I'm included or not.
Yeah.
And so this is, but they know the outcomes. The
Right.
outcomes are a presentation of facts to know and understand why they're applying to the school or why they want to go to the school. And then I'm there objectively providing that intel for them. It's really outsourcing expertise
Right.
that they may not have time for,
Hmm.
or they may not know themselves. But it's like any job. You
Hmm.
just don't walk into a job and know everything.
Right.
It's just not feasible. And to expect that you know everything about colleges when there's 3,000 of them, it's an extraordinary task.
Yeah. I mean, we're not
It's
willing to cut their hair. We're not willing to give them a
oh,
haircut.
that's great. That's
Like,
great.
you know what I mean? Like, we pay for all these professionals to come in and do these services, but yet we're not going to pay a professional to come in and figure out what the biggest decision of your life you need to make at 18 years old. Am I crazy? Like, I get it. I
That,
totally get it.
oh, that has I gotta use that. I mean, that sets it up. And yes, you'll send your kid for haircuts every month,
Hmm.
but will you send them to a professional to help them with their future? Are
Yep.
you gonna make that investment?
Yep. I've said that to people with real estate lately, because there's a lot of talk about buyer commissions and all these things that happen. And I did a seminar a few months ago, right when the lawsuits were coming down, and there was a crowd of 100 people, and I stopped them and I said, "Let me ask you something. How many of you like going to the car dealership?" Not a single hand goes up. Okay. How many of you don't know how to negotiate, don't know anything about cars? About half the hands went up. Okay. How many of you, when you went to the car dealership, you brought someone with you who knew about cars and knew how to negotiate with the car dealership? About 25 more hands went up. I said, okay, so you did that for a car at $40,000, but you're not going to do that for a house that you're buying at $500,000. You're not going to bring in an expert who knows how to work for you and negotiate for you with the other person. Because if you just go in alone, that person, that selling agent, is not representing you or your interest. They are only representing the seller, and you are left out there in the cold to hope that you get what you need. Why not bring someone with you that can help you along the way? And this is the same exact thing. It's professional service that is helping them make the right choice for a massive, massive investment.
Outstanding. Another great logical reason to leverage experts in what they do and know and understand what your limitations are. And at minimum, know that you have this option.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you're making this decision because you don't want to spend the money and or save the money, because that's the other thing is I so I'll give you an example. So I'm working with this student and helped him with his essays, and the parents didn't want anything to do with the application process. They said, Phil, go with Zach and help him out.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had a budget of like $40,000 a year. He wants to go to law school, and so I worked with him on a variety of different essays to help him stand out, and he got offered uh, a University of Miami full tuition scholarship.
Wow.
The parents were floored and in shock
Yeah.
that we did this. And ironically, Miami's room and board alone is the size of the SUNY school for a full for yes, $25,000 for room and board. Yeah, so imagine what the tuition is.
Oh.
So, but and he just recently accepted the offer, but he got into like 15 other schools that he wanted to apply to, and he identified So as soon as he got accepted to the schools, he stopped using my services. He was a very smart kid, but he went to the value
Yeah.
proposition of University of Miami compared to all the other prestigious schools he got into, which was between $35,000 and $50,000. It just made sense. And now, without my support, he's unlikely that he wins that scholarship because we worked a good 6 hours on those two supplemental essays, and it's a world of difference. It's a world of difference when you have another perspective to support the student in a way. And surprise, surprise, I saved the family all this money because if he would have went there for $90,000 a year, that would have been 300. First of all, he wasn't going there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mom and dad set the budget. That's you're not going there. But
Yeah.
now he's going to a college that's very expensive, and he that wasn't even on his radar.
Mm.
Wasn't even on his radar.
And look at that. You're spending some money on college and career planning, sure, but if you're saving more money in the end, it's it's a net positive for you. Like that's all there is to it.
Yeah, it's so hypothetically they were willing to pay, 40. So we saved them, for big bucks
Yeah.
on
Yeah. That's
so
huge.
13, yeah, it's over $100,000.
It's amazing.
So
Amazing. All right, Phil, on that note,
yep.
I'm going to draw us to a close here. Thank you for coming on. I'll put all your information, planningandvision.com will be in the notes here. You are a wealth of knowledge. We definitely got to do this again because I feel like we only probably tapped into like half of what we could talk about. Because we didn't even get
Yeah.
into business stuff and all that, which I want to have a whole nother conversation just because you are a great business mind. So I want to have like a solely just business dedicated podcast with you in the near future because you are a wealth of knowledge and appreciate what you're doing. You're doing great stuff. Your services are amazing and look forward to hearing about all the success and kids that you're helping with college and career planning.
Thank you, John. And I was gonna plug you with so take the easy path, parents. Go ed path. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
you've
like
got to
that.
go
Yeah.
ed path.
The easy path is ed path. Yep. If you want to go into teaching and you want to feel confident in your interviews, we are the best there is. We have the best coaches. We have the best plan. We do so much. I mean, the other interview coaching that you'll see, that if you find anything, and I have no issue with interview coaching, but like no one in the teaching realm is niche down like we are, to be able to provide this service. And most of it is just generic stuff. Like that's what we give out for free in our planner online. Like you could just download our free tips. And that's what most people will do in an interview coaching session. What we give is so much more insightful. We have a personality test that's based on what administrators want to see. We administer that to the client. Our intake, we get so much information from you. The school analysis, every piece of the interview process we could do. It's really just a home run if you want to have an edge in a super competitive environment. Yeah.
Outstanding. Thank you,
Yes.
John.
Hey, thank you, Phil. It was great talking to you, and we will do this again soon.
Thanks, John. See you